How the power supply at Clifton can impact your weekend plans.
CEO of the largest gaming house in Nassau says he's ready for the industry to be regulated and he wants to help you win as well. Find out how.
And the government school sports season gets ready to start. Here are the plans for the year. The Bahamas Tonight, the National Report starts now.
Now in HD. Sept Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
Power outages expected to extend into the weekend as BEC continues to deal with its laundry list of maintenance issues. Good evening, I'm Charisma Robinson.
And I'm Candino Knowles. Well, 3 of BEC's main engines broke down as a result of those existing faults, leaving consumers in the dark once again. BEC Chairman Leslie Miller told our Janelle Ferguson that while another island-wide blackout is not expected, consumers can expect the load shedding to continue.
Widespread power outages throughout New Providence today. Behind me, I'm at the Clifton Pier plant. Pier engine 10 and 9 are down. As you can see behind me, work crews are working diligently to get the power back on, but Chairman Leslie Miller says that might not be before the day is out.
At 5 o'clock when the business establishments close, we're going to close down all the government businesses, all the ministries and corporations will be shut off, and all the banks and financial institutions, and we'll then shift our power towards the consumer to make sure that there's no serious disruption throughout New Providence tonight. That's all we can do. But again, and I emphasize it from the time we took over, we must get a new plant at Clifton. If not, forget the damn thing. We don't have near the capacity that is needed to run an effective plant. Say Florida Power and Light, and those other companies that really run good plants, they would have an average of 20% oversupply.
Now, officials from BSWU, the company responsible for maintenance of BC power plants, broke down the crux of the issue. He says it'll take a lot of work to get these engines back up and running. And Mr. Miller also broke down what these power outages can mean on your power bill.
Parts have 30 days, 90 days delivery time. So it can be difficult in a situation some we have now, with all these failures, to get parts in as fast as we need them. But we work as hard as possible to do it.
We went to 35 and now we're going to be back up. Right now we're probably back up to about 37, 38 cents per kilowatt hour. When you use Blue Hills, Clifton produces power between 14 and 16 cents per kilowatt hour. Some of the engines at Blue Hills can go as much as 45 cents per kilowatt hour. So if you're using Blue Hills, your light's going to increase. Your cost can increase. That's why you must emphasize and put your money at Clifton. Don't take a genius to figure that. Any high school fella can figure that. We are looking at purchasing these 20 megawatts worth of engines very shortly to enable us to have that standby capacity. But our hope is that we can get these engines here at Clifton ready in time within the next day or so and have them back online. They were online, but they came off, like the gentleman said. It's unfortunate both of them came off at the same time, but appreciate they're using the same fuel. They are the same age, so it stands to reason that both of them may just fail at the same time.
Now, Mr. Miller urged other government officials to make a decision on a partner for BC fast. He says a new power plant is the only way consumers can get some relief. Janelle Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
Now to another big story tonight, the proposed gaming bill meeting the approval of the country's largest web shop operator.
CEO of Island Lux, Sebastian, says while he may not be a legal expert to understand all of the technical terms of the bill, he's more than familiar with the industry standards, procedures and mechanisms and is satisfied that the bill addresses all areas adequately. Clint Watson sat down with the CEO to discuss a document that's being described as revolutionary in the Bahamas.
Clint joins us now live in studio. Good evening, Clint.
Good evening, Candino. Good evening, Charisma. We can tell you, these CEOs are actually getting down to the crux of the matter as far as what they want to do when this bill becomes regularized and passes really in the House of Assembly and in the Senate. CEO of Island Lux, Sebastian, quite pleased with the newly amended gaming bill.
They did a great job whoever did it, the consultants, AG consultants. It was very well put together. I'm very familiar with gaming and how gaming should be regulated because we deal with gaming in other jurisdictions. So I've seen a lot of the consistencies with the regulatory requirements and different lingo as I would have seen in other jurisdictions I've seen in our bill. So I think it was a very well put together document.
The bill has attached a significant amount of fees, and while there are concerns from the industry that the playing field is not level since casinos are only being taxed 5% on earnings while web shop pay 11%, Bastien by and large says the fees for the most part are standard to a regulated industry.
The government needs its fair share of taxes, and if whatever they deem fair, we will accept as long as it is consistent with international best practices and consistent with what's happening here locally with casinos and in other jurisdictions or whatever. So the tax is the tax, and we're just happy to be a part of a revenue generator for our country, in our much needed time of revenue to put down our national deficit. Tax is very important. So it's all about being treated fairly, and once it's fair, we're fine with it.
Bastien, however, wants to ensure there's no discrimination. He says in order to achieve this, there must be equality, particularly when it comes to access to facilities, be it casino or web shops, and ownership. He says taxes should never be based on who's behind the business, but international best practices. There's no clear figure on what the local gaming industry is worth, but Bastien did put things in perspective based on his operation.
The industry does not make $400 million. It may have $400 million in sales, but it doesn't make $400 million in profits. And I think that figure was taken in the wrong context when it first came out and it became a part of public discussion. But the industry, I think the industry would be somewhere around, after expenses, under $100 million, or a little bit above with it, before expenses. So if I was to guess, I would say it may be a $140 to $150 million industry.
Sabaz says online and interactive gaming will take over the future of the industry, and he's excited to be a part of the industry's future. He says once the law passes, his first move is to empower Bahamians.
First thing we're going to do at Island Luck is try to get an IPO started, to get Bahamian participation and ownership expanded, so it's just not, amongst a small group of segregated people. I believe in empowerment, and I believe in sharing the wealth and spreading the wealth. And this is a new economic paradigm, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that even other industries that we might want to get into outside of gaming is also expanded from an ownership perspective for all Bahamians to enjoy.
Now, Bastien says they're not afraid of Bahamians being allowed in casinos. He feels operators will just have to be creative in attracting business. But again, if discrimination is removed on that end, then he's of the view they should be allowed to get this operate a casino in Nassau as well. Now, level playing field is all they're asking for. In our next report, we discuss with the CEO new employment and career opportunities in a regulated industry. But for now, reporting live, Clint Watson, ZNS News. Back to you, Charisma.
Thanks, Clint.
All right, well, Bahamas Senior Vice President of External Affairs Robert Sands is calling on government to double up its efforts on energy reform and crime, as he says both are vital to the success of the tourism sector. Mr. Sands says those two issues are equally as important as the gaming bill, which was tabled in the House of Assembly on Wednesday.
There may be two other areas now that this gaming bill is tabled that the government must work on to make sure that we remain competitive in our industry. And the Prime Minister alluded to one of them. We have to get crime under control. It is critical for the success of the tourism industry. And the second issue is that we must bring resolution to reliable, cost-effective energy for our sector. These three things, once addressed, puts the Bahamas in the forefront of a successful tourism industry.
Funding for the development and refurbishment of infrastructure to respond to the impact of climate change is a challenge for the Bahamas, according to Deputy Prime Minister Philip Davis, who told the United Nations the country needs help. Davis was speaking at the United Nations 3rd International Conference on Small Island Developing States in Samoa Monday. He said the Bahamas is one of the countries most vulnerable to climate change in the world, as it's one of the island states most vulnerable to sea level rises. Davis says while the National Emergency Management Agency has done its best to respond to natural disasters, the makeup of this country makes it costly to access damage and provide timely assistance to the family islands.
must partner with the Bahamas to enhance our resilience. The Bahamas is deliberately working to mitigate risk factors that may threaten our stability, including through better land use planning and strengthening our geographic information systems. This year, we established the Bahamas National Geographic Information System Center as a department, which enables us to enhance our use of geospatial data in understanding and assessing the mitigation actions required to address the adverse risks of climatic changes.
In other news tonight, a small rogue plane that flew for hours, unresponsive from Rochester, New York, en route to Naples, Florida, but crashed Friday off the coast of Jamaica, flew right over the Bahamas. Keith Major, Chief Operations Officer at the Air Traffic Control Center at LPIA, told ZNS News that the plane was at 25,000 feet when it passed through the Bahamas and at no time posed a threat to the country. At that altitude, Major said it was never in Bahamian airspace. Although local authorities were aware of it and monitoring it, the Miami Center and Miami Oceanic Center had control of the airspace but were liaising with local officials. 2 U.S. fighter jets had been dispatched after the plane was apparently no longer in sight. Officials say the F-15 pilots could see the plane before the small plane's windows frosted and a pilot slumped over. The officials said 1 or 2 other people were believed to be on board, though the number was not confirmed. A Cuban fighter jet was later sent to trail the aircraft as it flew near that part of the island. International reports say the plane went down about 14 miles northeast of Port Antonio. We are told that Jamaican and U.S. Coast Guard planes and ships are on their way to the scene.
Phase 1 of the long-awaited and much-disputed port at Resorts World Bimini is now complete. Resort officials making the announcement this afternoon, noting that passengers can begin disembarking directly onto the island as early as September 18th. The company also announcing a new sailing schedule of 6 days, with 3 days from Port Everglades and the Port of Miami, respectively. The new port will eliminate the need for tender services to the island, and the doubling of sailing days is expected to be an economic boost to the island's tourism-based economy. Phase 2 of the construction will feature permanent housing for the Customs and Immigration departments, and Phase 3 will feature new tourist attractions, including water sports on site, a restaurant, and beach club.
This segment of the news is brought to you by Shell Quality Fuels.